Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Cream City Cast. This is CreamCityCentral.com's weekly podcast discussing the latest in Milwaukee Bucks takes and giving you the latest going on in Milwaukee. Cream City Cast is brought to you by the Shepherd Express at shepherdexpress.com. Check them out for all the latest in Milwaukee entertainment, art, food. Really a great place to check out. I'm here once again in episode 3 with Andrew Goodman, fellow writer at Cream City Central. Andrew, how's it going? And let's get into the last week's Bucks games.
Hey man, I personally can't complain, but as for the Bucks, rough week to say the least. But it first started off with a win against the Detroit Pistons at home, 99-95. Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton were very essential to the Bucks' success down the stretch. They combined for 12 points in clutch time. And the Bucks won despite Detroit hitting 15 threes, which is not a good sign for defense at all. And that was pretty much indicative of how the Bucks would play the rest of the weekend. That game was followed up by the debacle in Dallas against the Dallas Mavericks. They lost 111-79 to one of the worst teams in the NBA. That is never a good sign. Bucks just looked flat that game. The defense was horrible. It didn't look like there was any effort at all. Players were playing at like 30%. They were sleepwalking. Players were trying to get their own buckets, playing selfishly. Dallas made 19 of their 38 three-pointers, and that's the most three-pointers the Bucks have ever given up to an opponent in Bucks history. That is a lot. And the Bucks struggled from the free throw line again. They went to the line 31 times, only making 17. John Henson and Giannis Antetokounmpo struggled mightily from the line. And finally, the Bucks lost to the Washington Wizards at home, 99-98. Noted Jason Kidd didn't coach that game, so we can't blame him for the loss. In that game, there was just no ball movement again. The players were just standing around. The ball was sticking, very stagnant. And also what really caught my eye is how bad the defensive communication was this game. There were just a lot of wide open shots for the Washington Wizards throughout that game. What do you think of the week for the Bucks, Dylan?
You know, I really don't care about the win. I thought that was going to be the most important game of the week when it happened, when we beat the Pistons, as the Pistons are much improved this year and are ranked, I think, maybe the top 4 teams in the East right now. But it was really more about the noticeable complacency against Dallas and Washington. You know, you kind of summed it up really well. It really seemed like they were sleepwalking in both games, and there was no real urgency to play. And this is what I was worried about in previous podcasts, that, you know, we go on a nice 4-game winning streak, you're riding high on the Bledsoe momentum, but then you lose 2 games to, I'm not saying that the Wizards are a bad team, but Dallas, like you said, is probably one of the worst teams in the NBA, bottom 5. The Wizards are supposed to be a good team, but I mean, you lost to him by 11, and you really didn't play that well. I was at this game, actually, and Kelly Oubre, every time I looked, he was hitting a 3.
He always kills the Bucks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it always seems like he is the guy that comes off the bench for the Washington Wizards and is an absolute thorn in the side of the Milwaukee Bucks. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and, you know, John Wall didn't really have a good game. He was limited. I don't have the exact stat line in front of me. Bradley Beal played well, but, you know, in the 2 losses, you could really see that it was mostly because of just complacency all around. A lot of threes, a lot of standing around as well. The Bucks are better when they're in transition, and they're better when they're pushing the ball up and down the court. So I thought it was interesting to see, even with Bledsoe, you know, you saw Chris Middleton in a lot of ISO situations trying to create for himself.
Yeah, the Bucks the last week, I don't know what happened to them. It's just they lost their mojo. Like you said, it's like they were off that high from getting Eric Bledsoe. Now they just look completely flat. I have no idea what it is, but could this be indicative of how the rest of the season goes, perhaps?
I mean, that's a good question, and it kind of leads us into what our topic is today, discussing about the Bucks rotations in the future, because now that we have, I guess, a big enough sample size and against enough opponents with Bledsoe on the roster, seeing what fits the best. And I'm not sure that I see like a lineup that I'm comfortable with putting out there every night. I mean, Bledsoe, he makes impacts a lot more than in the stat sheet that you can see, but his jump shot has just looked awful in the last couple of games, hasn't it?
Yeah, he looks out of shape to me, in my opinion. He's still hustling, he's giving it his all, but before the Bucks got him, the Suns pretty much, shunned him, and he wasn't working out with them for what was it, like 2.5 weeks. So I think that's definitely playing a role in his poor play recently for sure.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting also how in the Wizards game, I mean, I know Delly's hurt, but Gary Payton got an extended run, and honestly, he actually looked pretty good. I was at the game, and he uh he was getting to the rim, playing some good defense. He finished 4 or 6 on the night and over a little under 15 minutes. I mean, do you think? Because it's interesting. There's so many people hurt right now, and they're key players too
Yeah, absolutely.
like Telly, Deli, and Jabari. So both let's just stick with the power forwards for a minute. So Jabari's hurt. So you're kind of are in like a modified starting lineup where you have Giannis, I guess, playing the four, even though he's not really the four. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With Henson. So I think it's just going to be interesting to see what Kid does when he has his full roster because they go about 8 deep. So where does the playing time come from when Teletovic comes back and when Parker comes back?
Yeah, see, that's the thing for me. I think the Bucks would have the most success when Jabari comes back. 'Cause if they go small, I know we touched on this in I believe in last week's edition, but I think the best recipe for the Bucks' success would be running out a lineup of Eric Bledsoe, Tony Snell, Chris Middleton, JP, and then Giannis at the five, because that's really what the NBA is going towards. More small ball, faster pace, people who can shoot. And when JP comes back, it's going to do wonders for the Bucks because JP is a pure scorer. He can get a bucket whenever, can put the ball on the floor, get to the line. So he's going to be, as we know, much welcome addition to the lineup.
And you're right. And the management has kind of created the roster of positionless basketball with kind of the players they have. I mean, I understand Henson's kind of been grandfathered in with this new staff and everything, and you kind of want to play him because he is he is a traditional center in the league. He's long, obviously, and gets a lot of blocks and stuff, but I mean, and he played good against the Wizards. He shot 5 of 8, 10 rebounds, 10 points. I don't think John Henson's the problem, but I think you got to start playing the team how it's supposed to be played and how it was built because especially when Jabari comes back, up and down wise, I don't think I mean, maybe when the Warriors have their small ball lineup out without Pachulia, but I mean, that's kind of what we're going for. I mean, we don't have the shooters, I think, which is a kind of a problem, but I think that should be the goal is to have, like you said, that small lineup because and when people say Jabari Parker shouldn't be starting when he comes back, I mean, I just think that's kind of an egregious statement. I think you got to play your best players, and I just think you can't be matching up with teams. The Bucks have to dictate the pace and how the play is going, don't you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I can see him, Jabari Parker, when he comes back, maybe, first week, maybe coming off the bench just to get his knee acclimated and, get in game shape. But I think the Bucks aren't going to be in a position where you can mess around and have Jabari Parker sit on the bench for, what is he coming back in February?
Yeah.
You can't have him sitting on the bench for an extended period of time because let's be honest, the Bucks look like crap right now. So I don't think they're in a situation where they can be, really messing around with lineups, and they're going to be forced to trot out what the best lineup is. And it appears that Bledsoe, Snell, Middleton, Jabari Parker, and Giannis would be, the most likely situation when he returns.
Yeah. And then, we had texted about this before, but you said you said it yourself that it seems like Jason Kidd's kind of turning into a Tom Thibodeau 2.0, to be honest with you, because he has all this young talent, but even when times get tough, just brings out all the people that have I don't know, like even when Telly and Deli are in, DJ Wilson's not getting any clock, Sterling Brown wasn't getting any clock, and he's killing it in the D League. He had a fantastic first 2 or 3 games.
Yeah, see, the thing with me and Jason Kidd is I don't want to say he's running Giannis and them to the ground, but it's kind of looking a lot like what Tom Thibodeau did in Chicago with Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler, Luol Deng, just to name a few. Going back to that horrible game in Dallas, I think Giannis still ended up playing like 35 minutes or something like that in a game that was decided in the third quarter. So just, little things like that, game management, for when playoffs roll around, could be looking at a lot of tired legs.
Yeah, and I mean, you'd think like I've when you watch DJ Wilson play in a limited time, he kind of runs around like with a chicken with his head cut off. But I mean, you think like you give him at least a little extended run just to see what he can do. Because when he gets into the game with garbage time, it's like, well, am I even really making an impact when I get in? He just doesn't seem he's not like looking to shoot really. He's just kind of looking to fill space. And I mean, you can't really have that, especially with the pick. Like, what was I think he was number 17.
Yeah, that's the thing is, he knows he's a role player and a bench player, but that's the thing with roles is you don't know when your number is going to get called. So, once you get put in there, it's a little, like you said, running around with a chicken like its head cut off type thing, just all over the place.
Yeah, and you'd think with Telly being out in Delhi and it's an early season game, you're getting killed by Dallas. I mean, he played 3 minutes against Dallas when they were
Yeah.
down by they were down by 20 at least for most of the second half.
Yeah, touching on the bench situation, I'm very livid with the fact that Rashad Vaughn is still on this roster. He's useless. When was the last time he played? I think
Right.
he's better used being cut. What has he done in his what? How long has he been here? Like 3 years?
Yeah, and
Hasn't done
and
anything to improve significantly, and I think you would benefit from cutting him and then signing someone like you said, James Young, who's been on fire in the G League to a two-way contract.
yeah, you're right. I mean, and especially because they declined his option for next year, so you don't have any long-term plans with him for the future. So it's like, why even have him on the roster when you're not going to play him? And James Young, he had 40 the previous game, and he had 40 tonight. He was 9 of 10 from behind the arc tonight. Like, you're telling me that we couldn't use that on our bench, especially when Teletovic is out, who, I mean, he's not the greatest guy in the world, but he can knock down threes occasionally when he's open. And it's not like you'd be asking James Young or Sterling Brown to be doing that.
Right. And that's where the Bucks have struggled is with perimeter jump shooting ever since Delhi and Telly both went out. They've been absolutely horrendous from three. And something else that's, been a problem for them is Malcolm Brogdon. He doesn't look like himself. He's looked very bad to say the least last week.
Yeah, he played pretty well in the winning when we were on that 4-game winning streak. I mean, he played 32 minutes against Dallas, and he had 4 points, and then he was held scoreless against Washington. So, it's I'm afraid that maybe the hype train is kind of slowing down a little bit and they're reverting back to their old ways, which I don't know. I'm not trying to say like I knew it was going to happen because they played really well in 4 games, but they're so hot and cold. And I don't, and like we touched on this earlier, I don't know if it's maybe like the defenses are just kind of understanding what the Bucks do, or we're not getting turnovers. I mean, I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, another thing, like you said, is teams have now adjusted to Milwaukee and how they play offense. So now what you're seeing is these teams are sending, 3 players packing the paint, which makes, Giannis really limited in what he can do because his jump shot, let's be honest, is still pretty broke, even from mid-range. He has improved, but it's still not reliable enough where you're comfortable with him, just taking mid-range jump shots. So it's gonna be crucial. This is a crucial juncture for Jason Kidd and the adjustments that he makes because let's be honest, we haven't seen really any adjustments this year.
No, and Eric Bledsoe, I mean, I mean, he's not noted as a shooter, but his jump shot was worse than Lonzo Ball's almost. Like, it is broke.
Yeah,
And the crowd, and when I was at the game on Monday against the Wizards, the crowds were pleading him to make jump shots, just begging him. They were open too. And when you have Giannis on your team, this is why you need shooting around him. Chris Middleton needs to stop doing one dribble pull ups and stuff like that. He needs to start catching on the three, elevating, and shooting because it's all about spacing. And
No,
Giannis needs to catch it in a better situation. He catches it at the top of the shot clock with 9 seconds left on the clock, and you're like, okay, well, go create when you don't have a jump shot and they're packing the zone. So it's like, what is he supposed to do?
yeah, you're right. See, that's the problem with the Bucks lately is that they're waiting so long to get their offense initiated because of how teams are adjusting to them that you end up, just throwing the ball into Giannis or Bledsoe's hand with like 8 seconds left and forcing them to take a horrible shot, which is pretty much just, the same thing as a turnover, if we're being honest.
No, you're right. And then, so I mean, for rotation wise, I'd say my biggest concerns or the things I need to address the most is the power forward, which will address itself with Jabari comes back. And then I'd say maybe just kind of like what they're going to do when he gets back, I guess. Was that what you think as well?
Yeah, they haven't got. In my opinion, Thon Maker has been borderline unplayable this season. But then again, you don't have any options because, going into this Phoenix game, especially with John Henson not playing, how many players are they going to have on their bench that are going to be eligible to suit up? Like three? Something
Yeah.
like that. They'll have Liggins. Yeah,
They'll have
Brogdon.
Liggins, Peyton, Brogdon. I mean, they'll have Rashard Vaughn and Jason Terry and DJ Wilson. But like this is, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they're going to bring Sterling Brown back because of due to the injuries, and maybe they showed him that he can get some clock. But I think you're right. I think James Young would be a perfect fit. He never really had a long stay in the NBA. He seems player. It's just weird because and it's kind of how normal people are, like not professional basketball players. As you get older, the game comes easier. It just does. And I feel like he might be that type of player because he really could shoot it when he was at Kentucky. He was a first round pick for a reason.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's been tearing it up in the D League. Granted, let's say they do. In my dreams, this would be my totally dream scenario: is that they cut Rashad Vaughn and then sign James Young to a two-way contract. I'm not expecting him to drop 40 points in the NBA, but sometimes it takes a shot in the arm like this from a player being called up to sometimes make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that, going forward, looking into next season, that there's no, I mean, it'll depend on what kind of impact Jabari makes when he gets back, but I think that's no question that you have to re-sign him
Oh, absolutely, 100%. They'd be stupid to let him walk.
because, I mean, you're going to have more money open later, so you have the rights to him and you can match any contract, so you might as well.
Yeah, but that's the thing. At what price are you willing to keep him, and what price are you just, like, all right, that's just way too much money.
I
Go
mean,
have fun somewhere else.
he's 22 going on 23 right now. He has 2 surgeries, but that's the thing. He is 22 and he has, I mean, his legs, he's strong. I mean, it's tough. There's a lot of different factors going into it. If I'm making the decision, I don't think do you think he's going to get a max by someone or like close to that?
I don't think he'll get a max, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some dark horse team with a decent amount of cap room throw him, you know, anywhere between, I'd say like maybe 14 mil, 14, 15 mil.
I think that's a bargain. I mean,
You think that's a bargain?
You're paying John Henson 11 million. It's like, where are your priorities? And you know, they have players that they might have to eat some draft picks, but they can get rid of some players too to make it a little more manageable.
Yeah,
And
because
go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. Um, like you said about the contract, it's Philadelphia just signed Robert Covington. What was that, like 4 years, 3, 4 years, 67 mils, somewhere around there. Like I'd be comfortable giving that to Jabari Parker for sure.
Yeah, and it's like you're not going to get another talent like Jabari just like that because you're Milwaukee. I mean, until the Bucks reach Eastern Conference Finals, they're going to be treated like the old Milwaukee Bucks. And until they stop playing mediocre, like they're 8-8 right now. They would not be in the playoffs if the season ended today. And we have an MVP candidate, Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton, and it's really not because we're not good enough. It's because we just don't show up, and we're not that good to not show up. The Cavs aren't good not to show up. The NBA as a whole, I'm just like going on a little rant here, but the NBA as a whole has gotten a lot better. You don't really have like other than the Hawks, the Bulls, the Nets, you don't really have any garbage teams in the NBA. There's at least one player on every team except those teams that I stated that can go off and can I mean, the Mavericks, we lost 111 to 79 to Dallas
That's just
on
horrible.
the yeah, and it granted it was on the road, but if you lose, that's fine. But you lose by almost 40 points.
Yeah, I'm not gonna drop names, but I saw some people on Twitter kind of dismissing the Bucks loss in Dallas. What was it, by 32?
Yeah,
And I'm thinking to myself, like, how can anyone think this is okay? Like, this is one of the worst teams in the league. They played the previous night. The Bucks had 2 days rest. Let's be honest, Dallas, they're a scrappy team, but they're just not good. That's a team the Bucks should handle. So I think
and
losing to Dallas is a huge deal.
yeah, you get JJ Barea comes off the bench and scores 20 points. That's you can't that cannot happen. And you look at the Bucks losses this season, you lose to Charlotte on the road, you lose to Dallas on the road. Two winnable games. You're above 500 just like that. And like when they lose games, they seem to just get blown out.
Yeah, there's really no in between. It's either the Bucks win a close game or they're getting blown out by 10 or more points. And see, that's why I'm asking, is this indicative of, the Bucks' true colors and how they shape out for the rest of the season?
Because they play like this. I mean, I think basketball is a game of streaks, whether it's winning, whether it's within a game, and they're gonna beat some teams that they're not supposed to beat. Also, I mean, it's just how the NBA works. So right now, if I had to put them like where they're gonna finish, if they keep playing how they're playing, they're gonna be like a 6 or 7 seed.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that. Somewhere floating between 500, maybe just under or 2 games above, like they finished last year. But I had high standards. A lot of us did on the Bucks coming into this season, and if they don't finish with 50 wins, I would consider this pretty big disappointment of a year.
Yeah. Well, they say own the future and all that jazz, but when you got to go check up and let's play basketball, you better have players to back it up because this is a fan base that wants to win now. You see it every night when the Bradley Center, it's getting more packed every night because people think that this team can compete. And if you keep letting them down when the hype is at its highest, that doesn't help. Like, I'm not saying they have to go on a 10-game winning streak or something like that, but you can't lose 2 games like that after a 4-game winning streak when all the fans are like so hyped about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. The Bucks are definitely they should be way better than how they're playing, and again, this can tie back into Jason Kidd and coaching staff and what their scheme really is, because I see a lot of the same problems that they had last year, giving up boatload of open threes, which is just egregious. It's so annoying.
Well, and then, I mean, we're really nitpicking here, but I think it's, well justified. We're the worst rebounding team in the NBA.
That's not good.
Our opponents get 9 offensive rebounds a game against us on average. So the stats back up the claims. We need help in the front line, and it's not. And if it's just effort, then because that's what offensive rebounding is, in my eyes. You can look at each individual ones like, oh, long rebounds or whatever, but to give up 9 a game, there's got to be at least 3 of those are on lack of effort, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've noticed that the Bucks have been employing this really stupid strategy of trying to tip out the rebound, and it'll just result in a wide open bucket for the opposition. I think that needs to go. That needs to go for sure.
I think Jason Kidd needs to take a good look into the mirror this next couple weeks because you have 4 or 5 winnable games coming up. You're on a road trip, I understand, but I think they play the Suns, they play the Kings, Portland, and I forgot who the other team was, but man, you got to get at least 3 wins on this trip in my eyes.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. But with how the Bucks are playing, let's just hold our breath and hope they beat the doormat that is the Phoenix Suns tomorrow.
Yeah, uh, is Moose is playing? I'm assuming, right? Yeah.
Yeah, watch him score like 65 points, 15 rebounds, 20 assists, some ridiculous like 2K triple
No,
double.
that. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be shocked. They play the Suns on Wednesday, Utah on Saturday, Sacramento on Tuesday. That's 3 winnable games.
Yeah, the only real toss up there for me would be at Portland or at Utah, just
Yeah,
because the Bucks, they don't win in Utah. They don't. I
yeah.
think the last time they won there, I don't know the exact date, but it was close to like '07.
And those are the games where you'll see, just like Dallas, you could see complacency right there. And if you see it in those games, and that's a problem, then but do you think the owners like have the balls per se to fire Jason Kidd?
No, absolutely not. They're in bed with Jason Kidd. Let's be honest. They're all in cahoots together. They're best buds. I forgot if it was Lazary and Kidd or Edens and Kidd that are, close friends from his Brooklyn days, but I don't think this ownership has enough cojones to necessarily fire Jason Kidd. But then again, if the season does go awry, we'll see.
Well, it's interesting because it's like you have to give the fans what you promised. You're building this new arena, and people won't come if you're a mediocre team.
See
You got
that
you have them hooked right now. You got to make the moves to do it, or at least if they don't win a playoff series this year, this has been I don't care if they don't go 50 wins. If they do not win a playoff series this year, it's a travesty, to be honest with you.
Oh, no, Dylan, I couldn't agree with you more. That's the problem that I have with this own the future slogan that the Bucks have bestowed. I get wanting to play for the future, whatever, but let's be honest, the Bucks, their best window is now. You're not trying to compete 3 years down the road. By that time, who knows if you'll still have Giannis around, what Jabari will be if you still have Bledsoe or Middleton. See, you're competing
Right.
now. This is why they made the move to go get Eric Bledsoe. I don't care that they gave up a draft pick. I see a lot of people on Twitter, whining that the Bucks gave up this pick. Like, you know what? In the grand scheme of things, they need to win now, not in the future. The future is very
Yeah.
uncertain. You need to win now. This is their window.
And especially being a mid-market team. And like you said, Giannis, he says he's loyal to Milwaukee, and I believe him. I believe that he will stay in Milwaukee for his career but you're not only doing this for the fans. You got to show it to Giannis. Giannis is signed a contract with Nike. He's being compared. Could he be the next LeBron, Magic Johnson? His career is going to be based on championships. And if you can't win a championship, I wouldn't stay.
Yeah,
Because what do you
absolutely.
play this? What do you play this game for? You play it for money. Do you play it for I mean, he's so family orientated, but you see his drive. You know he wants to win. So you got to put a team around him that's going to win. And LeBron could be leaving the East. So you got to be ready because if once he leaves, I know Boston's really good and they're going to get Gordon Hayward back, but man, I'm just saying this is the time, and I think you agree with me.
Oh, 100%. Just the future is so uncertain. You need to go with the pieces you have now. And I think the Bucks have decent enough core right now to definitely compete in the top half of the Eastern Conference. Then again, it ties back into winning these games that, the Bucks should.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely something that time will have to tell. But would you like to go ahead and get into our Shepherd Express minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So switching gears into the Shepherd Express Minute, brought to you by shepherdexpress.com. Really great function going on. There's a benefit for Rett syndrome, and this almost exclusively affects women. It's very terrible and heartbreaking. It causes vision problems, scoliosis, can cause seizures and epilepsy, and also difficulty breathing. So this is a great cause to go out to support. Tickets are only $12 at the door. There are going to be 5 bands playing. and it's going to be at the Cactus Club. So go out and support a great cause.
Yeah, once again, I just want to thank Shepherd Express for being our partners on Cream City Cast. They posted on their website. They can check it. You can check everything out there. We also have Cream City Central has some writers that contribute for them in their sports page, and it's really, like I've said before, it's really a great place to get all the news going on in Milwaukee, and it's run by Milwaukee, so you can trust where the information's coming from. It's the betterment of the city, and like you said, at the Cactus Club, the benefit for Rett syndrome, it's going to be a great event. Do you want to just run through the week schedule real quick?
Yeah, so like we said earlier, Bucks at Phoenix tomorrow night. Then they travel to Utah and face the Jazz on Saturday. Then they'll be flying to Sacramento to play the Kings on Tuesday, and they'll wrap up their West Coast road swing with a tilt against Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum in Portland on Thursday.
Give me your 4-game prediction.
Okay, so I think they're gonna win against Phoenix. I don't want to say it's a lock with how the Bucks have been playing, but should have no problem with Phoenix. I do think they're gonna lose the game at Utah, just because how history has not bode well for the Bucks in Utah. I think they'll beat the Kings. Kings are a scrappy team, but I think that's another team that the Bucks should handle. For me, that Portland game, that one's 50-50, but I think I can see Portland taking that one just because of Milwaukee's lack of depth, and Portland's getting great bench play right now.
Yeah, I think you say 2-2. I'm going to be on the optimistic side. I think the last 2 games have been a wake-up call, and I think, I think they just are tired of losing to mediocre teams. So I see a win against Phoenix. I'm going to be hopeful, and I think the Bucks are going to beat the Jazz. I think they're going to beat the Kings. So a 3-game winning streak, but tough to go into Portland and beat Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. So I think that's where their lone loss comes in on this 4-game West Coast trip. So
yeah, and this is a really good test to see where the Bucks are at mentally and physically. This is their first extended road trip of the season going west, so we'll see how they can acclimate.
Yeah, the Bucks seem to play better against Western Conference opponents anyway, so we'll see if that holds true. So, well, thank you for listening to our podcast. Once again, my name's Dylan Piccolo. You can check me out on Twitter at DylanPiccolo35. You can check out Andrew at Andrew_Goodman3.
Yes, sir. That's it.
And then you can check out both of our writings at creamcitycentral.com. We have a bunch of Bucks news for Wisconsin football fans. We have our Andrew Flagel. He's wrote a couple of good articles on there. You could also check out Shepherd Express for any of our podcasts. iTunes, you can subscribe, and SoundCloud. So we've been getting really good feedback. Our second podcast had quite a few listens, so we're excited about that and excited about giving you more good Bucks content. So thanks for listening to Cream City Cast, and we'll talk to you later.